All right, welcome back to Business Today. Ministry of Energy and the World Bank have today jointly launched the Mini Grids for 500 million People Handbook in Sub-Saharan Africa. According to the report, 568 million people still lack access to electricity. Globally, nearly 8 out of 10 people without electricity live in Africa. Solar mini grids can provide now uninterrupted electricity to unpowered or underdeserved villages and communities across Africa. Jimmy Mbogo joins us with more. Good afternoon, Jimmy.
All right, thank you very much, Nyakundi. This afternoon, we are here with the CS for Energy, that is Davis Chirchi, just for a quick interview before we let him go. Bona, CS, thank you so much for speaking to KTN. One of the things that we really want to understand, where are we in regards to trying to bring down the cost of power in the country?
Thank you very much. I thought we should be talking about have a mini grid to access 500 million people today, what we just launched this morning. Yeah. I think when we talk to really the cost of energy, it is something that we continue to work on. It's our focus as government to ensure that we bring down the cost of energy because it's an economic driver. We do not want to see a situation where the highest cost of production today and into the future is energy. And therefore, we will continue to work on the cost to bring it down. Like I mentioned in my speech, developing power is not a quick fix. It's not something that you do in 2 months of being in government. So we'll continue to work on policies which ensure that the PPAs that are signed do continuously bring down the cost of energy. Yeah. We are working on the losses of transmission to ensure that when we generate 100%, we are able to sell at least 90-95%. Because at the moment, with the energy losses of about 20%, we are paying 20% for energy that we don't consume, which basically disappears in the transmission network because of the poor network or because of the unscrupulous connectivity in some of our sectors. So we will continue to work on that. Like you are aware that the mainstay of energy in Kenya today is geothermal, which we deliver at about 7 cents US, fairly, very competitive. And as we continue to work on retiring the heavy fuel oil generation, diesel, which is the most expensive form of generation because of climate change issues, we will certainly continue and work down the cost of electricity to the economy and make energy cost to industry competitive for production for global farms to ensure that we are competitive.
Yeah, there's also the issue of these power purchase agreements that have been alluded to be one of the main challenges in terms of the rising cost of power. Maybe you can talk about that for a minute?
Power purchase agreement or PPA, as many may know, is a document that assures you of a market when you are starting to invest your $2 million per kilowatt per megawatt generation. And therefore, if a solar system was given under the feed-in tariff of 12 cents when the panels, the solar panels were still expensive, it becomes expensive to bring them down today. But under the presidential directive of renegotiating the power tariffs, we are working on those that have not come into play because the solar panels are much, much cheaper today with technology having developed. We are now not bringing in any more PPAs under the feed-in tariff of 12 cents. We're able to get 7 cents, 6 cents, and as technology improves, we will also be able to store the power so that availability of solar, you may not be aware, that is about 23%. Yeah. It only delivers power 8 hours, which is 8 out of 24 hours is 30%. But again, because of the weather condition during the day, it only delivers about 23%. So availability of solar is 23%. To amortize the capital investment, it's not like geothermal where availability is at 92%. So, but with storage really coming down today in batteries, we will see availability of solar in hybridization of solar and storage with cheap batteries, or the price of batteries coming down, significantly being more available, and amortization therefore being significantly much faster, or more bankable projects. So we'll see the cost of energy in renewable solar, wind coming down in the coming years because of technology move.
All right, one last question for me, Bwana Waziri. There's the issue of fuel costs in the country. We are seeing global prices stabilizing, yet the fuel prices in the country is still higher. So where are we in reducing the cost of fuel in the country? And of course, this is something that the government has been very keen about, and saying that the cost of fuel is going to come. How soon do we expect this?
We bring our products into the country through an open tender system, and we buy them on Platts pricing. But we do buy them on M+2. So we are now processing for April, May. So we will start seeing whatever happens 2 months from today, that hits us because we do spot purchases, and we do not do spot purchases. We do spot purchases to take care of the country security of supply. So as the prices come down, as the challenges of Ukraine, Russian curtailment comes into play, and because we buy oil prices on Platts, the international traded prices, we'll continue to enjoy those prices. Kenya is among the countries where petroleum products are very competitively kind of brought in by the oil marketing companies, because the product is consolidated by the oil marketing companies. One of them wins and bring them on Platts, premium plus freight. That's the only thing they compete on. So as the world stabilizes with what's happening in Ukraine, the post-COVID uptake of the petroleum products, we'll see the product coming down.
Do we have a timeline on this?
Like I mentioned, it is internationally traded. The product in Kenya today, if you check, is Platts pricing. It is not basically, the product is not brought by government. It is brought by the oil marketing companies on Platts pricing. They only compete on premium and freight. So we actually get, and like I said, M+2. If the prices continue to come down, we'll continue to progressively enjoy that, because we actually get our pricing on Platts pricing.
Thank you very much, Nakuni. And of course, this is one of the conversations that we will continue to follow up on this. And even as we let Waziri continue with his interview right there. So we will try and give you a more comprehensive bulletin, more comprehensive details rather, in our subsequent bulletin. But for now, back to you.
All right, thank you, Jimmy, for that story, and also for the information that we've gotten. All right, now we are back with Daniel Mainga, who is the General Manager, Pensions Division at Minute Kenya, and we are talking about the NSSF rates, which has been really a topic of discussion to think about it. And Mr. Daniel had said earlier that now, starting from the pay slips of February, Kenyans should expect at least 1,000 to go into the NSSF, and also now the amount that was being saved, 2,160, is both from the employer and the employee. So for the employee, it will be 1,080. Right, Mr. Daniel, thank you for joining us. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, thank you so much. Now, let's continue with the conversation. You had spoken about the tiers, and I would like you to explain what the option for the two-tier, for the tier 2 contribution mean.
Yeah, the tier 2 contribution, really, maybe I can just start by saying there is a tier 1 and the tier 2 contribution in the new NSSF Act, and therefore the tier 1 specifically will be the lower, will be based on contribution that will be based on the lower national average earning. For example, within the Act itself, we have what we call a progression table. The first 4 years will be, the Act anticipated that so that you don't get employees to struggle in terms of just a 6% from our payslips, then it was progressively going to ensure that we deduct and increase the amount over time. And therefore, for the first year, this year, for example, the payroll of February, then it is 6% of a total of 18,000. So the tier one is going to be 6% of 6,000 shillings, which is 360 shillings. So that is what must go into the NSSF as tier one. The tier two is the upper contribution, which again, the balance of the 6% of 18,000, which means 720 shillings, then goes into NSSF as tier two. So what you're saying is, in a nutshell, the overall contribution is 6% of 18,000. That is the cap for the first year. If you move to the second year, it will be 6% by the employee of 36,000. The third year, it will be 6% of 72,000. But this has been graduated just to ensure that the employee and the employer is also safeguarded. But back to your question in terms of what is tier one, what is tier two, the upper contribution, which is based on the upper national average earning, is what we are calling the tier two. And for the first year, it is going to be 720 shillings. Mm-hmm. If you add the 360 shillings for tier one, that's how you get the 1,080 shillings. So in a nutshell, that is employee contribution. The employer contributes the same. And that's why we have a total of 2,160 for the first year.
All right, thank you so much. Very well explained. Now, let's move on and look at the impact of all this that we are talking about and what these rates will have on Kenya's pension sector. And what are some of the opportunities that you foresee emerging even from the pension sector as a whole?
All right, as a pensioning industry, really the impact is interesting. Largely positive because it means increased funding to the retirement sector. So you can imagine a total contribution of 400, that is employee 200 and employer 200, which makes a total of 400. And then now we are talking of a total of 1,080 by employee and 1,080 by employer, meaning 2,160. That's a huge, huge impact. Now, whether the funds are going direct to NSSF or even some schemes which employers will contract out for tier two, overall, it's an increment of savings to the retirement sector. Okay, so the impact is huge, but for the private sector, of course, before pension schemes or rather employers contract out of tier two, the overall impact is that NSSF will basically receive huge sums of contributions for the months that members will be yet to contract out. So, but in a nutshell, overall, it's a big, huge jump on the contributions.
All right, even as we speak about the huge contributions, when you look at this NSSF Act, are there any missed opportunities within this Act?
Interesting question. I don't speak for the NSSF, but I think the NSSF has got some work to do, and largely because of historical issues, historical matters. I know what is in the public domain is that there are fears around sending these big contributions to the NSSF. So issues to do with, governance, issues to do with where to invest the funds, and basically reclaiming a good name, or rather getting to gain public confidence. I think that would be some great work to be done by the NSSF. From where I sit, NSSF, I know they've done quite a bit of work in terms of trying to, adhere to the retirement benefits regulations. But you see, at the end of the day, they need to win the public sector just to ensure that the larger population believes in what they're doing, and whatever they're doing is way above board, which I believe they can easily do that. Okay. So the other kind of issue I would be talking about would be, I think it would have been good if this act was implemented by giving the employers and the employees some sort of a time frame up to which they can effect it, because you can remember it just went through on 3rd of February, but again, the same February, we are all supposed to contribute to the NSSF. So there is a bit of an issue there. There is a bit of murmuring. And in fact, I can confirm, because again, it's also in the public sector, there are some groupings which are already at the Supreme Court, again, following up, trying to see whether this can be either held or even, whether cancelled, or at least members, if they can be given some time to implement and even come up with budgets for the employers. Yes.
All right, Daniel, briefly, even as we wrap up, your reaction to the concerns around gratuity raised by the Federation of Kenya Employers?
Issues raised by the FKE, I know gratuity has been a big one.
Yes.
And you see, several employers do offer pension offering, or even gratuity arrangements to their employees, and especially those on contract. They're really on gratuity. So the question is, how do you switch just immediately from gratuity to the NSSF saving, which is basically a pension fund, So I think there's a very fair request there, because really this requires planning. Does it mean you offer the same gratuity and on top of that contribute again 6% to the NSSF? So I believe they could have done much better on that one front. But again, we wait and see what the court determines.
All right, Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. We've come to the end of business today. Thank you so much for joining us today from wherever you are watching us from. My name is Kelvin Yakundi. View ya KTN coming up next.